Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan stops by to talk federal education and his thoughts on the possibility of Donald Trump running again in 2024. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. You know, you can save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you use the access code Dr. Duke. That would be me, DRDUKE. Support us by supporting MyPillow. Joined now by U.S. Congressman Jim Jordan for Ohio. Congressman Jordan, it's a great pleasure to have you here.
You bet.
And thank you for visiting our state of Wisconsin as well.
Great to be back in the Badger State.
Yes, this is where you went to school, right? And you wrestled.
My wife went here. My brother and sister and two of our boys wrestled for the Badgers as well. So we love Wisconsin.
It's pretty amazing. It's a great from Ohio to Wisconsin. I had the same journey.
Yeah.
And let me start by asking you, because we're a school. We're an online school.
Yep.
We do classical education for moms and dads. We're kind of a missionary program. We get real classrooms, classical education in front of these moms and dads at very low cost to try to give them an alternative. As you know, critical race theory. You think about what's going on in the military academies right now. You have young men signing up to swear by the Constitution to defend this country, and they're learning in their classrooms that the Constitution is a racist document that you shouldn't pay any attention to.
Yeah, young men are going to risk their lives for our great nation, and you're telling them our nation's not any good.
That's right.
I mean, what such a crazy concept. So, no, this is wrong. It's a Marxist radical ideology designed to say that America is not the best country in the world, the greatest nation ever. I always tell folks, we're not perfect, but we're the best thing going and the greatest nation ever. And frankly, I told one group, next to Jesus, the best thing that ever happened to this world is the United States of America. And that's not what the left believes. It's not what the people who push this crazy theory on our students, what they believe. So we got to fight it. We got to fight at the school board level. And frankly, we got to have state legislatures focus on school choice, empowering moms and dads. I say all the time, moms and dads know what's best for their kids. You think about the first institution the good Lord put together. It wasn't the church. It wasn't the state. It was moms and dads and kids, families. So let's empower families to take their money to the school they think is going to help their kids. That's I think, how you structure this long term.
Is there any plan afoot, or can you envision one? Because one of the problems we have with school choices is that, of course, if the state or the feds are funding any part of it, like with charters or vouchers,
I get that.
They flip that switch. You're doing a great job 2 years, and then since you're getting 40% of your budget from the state of Wisconsin, wham, you got to take the Common Core testing and that kind of thing. Is there anything on the table or anything you could think about that would allow the parents to have the money pre-tax? It's their money to begin with.
Yeah,
let them spend it and get a refund then.
Yeah, the old tax credit approach, which some states have done on a limited scale. I'm all for that. I'm for anything that empowers parents. Even the classic, the one that you have some concerns with, but putting the money on the back of the children and say it follows a kid, follows a kid to wherever they want to go, wherever the parents want them to go. My first year in politics in the mid-'90s, in the state legislature in Ohio, we passed the Cleveland Scholarship Program. I'll never forget. So this is, I don't know, what is that, 26 years ago, 1995. The scholarship, I think, was worth $2,250. We said we'll take the first 2,000 kids in the Cleveland public school system. I think we have 612 public school systems in Ohio. Cleveland at the time was spending more per child than I think just about anyone else, and had like a 30% graduation rate. I think they were spending like $7,000 back then, which was, and we were offering a scholarship worth $2,250. First day, for that limited number of scholarships, moms lining up, fighting, kicking, scratching to get what I call one of the golden tickets to escape the Cleveland public schools. And think about it, some of these moms were single mom African American who'd went to the Cleveland school system, maybe on some kind of public assistance, but they knew one thing: they didn't want their kids to go to the same school they had to go to. Right. So they were looking to give their kid opportunity. So I'm for that kind of program. I'm for a tax credit. I'm for whatever empowers moms and dads to get their kids to the school. When our kids were little, my wife homeschooled them. Sometimes I say we homeschool them, but I would be using that term lightly. She did all the work. Until they were like 5th or 6th grade, then they went in our local public school, and that's parents deciding what they think works for their kids. That's how it's supposed to work in this country.
It is. On a related basis, This is, when I look at critical race theory, I've taught college for 30 years. You're teaching kids that by virtue of their skin color, they're racist or they're not, they're victimized or not.
Yeah.
You're teaching these kids that it is the color of their skin that determines what they are. How is this not a clear, open violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Movement? And why is there no collective action against this? It seems to me that schools all across the country are fixated on this. They're going to target you for your race. Why is this not in the courts? Why is this not even from Congress? I mean, I get that many Republicans are vocal against this, but don't you right then and there, because it's predicated on race for everything? How is this not a much bigger issue than it is?
Because Americans are afraid of speaking out, right? Surveys show 60% of the public is afraid to speak their mind. They know this is wrong. They know this makes no sense. They know this is un-American. They know this is not consistent with our history. We're a 1776. I'm reading this great book by McCullough on 1776 and what Washington and the Congress and the Army, the Continental Army, what they were doing. How tough it was. That's the history we need to teach our young people, and not some crazy Marxist ideology that's contained in this. But I think a lot of Americans are afraid to speak out. But what is happening is parents. I said earlier today that no high-paid lobbyist will ever beat a mom on a mission, and moms on a mission to do best for their kids. Look out, when they get fired up, they're going to win these school board races around the country. And then in a few years, they're going to run for the state house or state senate or maybe even Congress and be in the United States Congress speaking out about this kind of stuff. So I think that's a great thing happening, but we just got to speak. But the problem is so many people are afraid of the cancel culture mob and the digital thunderdome you will face. Barry Weiss, former editor at New York Times, coined that term, the digital thunderdome you will face if you speak out against where the woke mob wants to go. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. And it's not just being afraid to speak their mouth about those issues. I think, to me, it gives lie to the argument that we are a systemically racist country. Yeah. The fact that we are so hypersensitive to race that even when our kids are being targeted for their race, still we're very sensitive about being too pushy about our opinion. So that seems to give the lie, in my mind, to the idea that this is a systemically racist country of any kind. But let me ask you a pivot question then. So it seems to me that for a long time, a lot of conservatives have painted their hopes on getting rid of the Department of Education. And, Ronald Reagan ran a landslide in 1980 and 84, running on that, but never did it. People were really hot about that. Every Republican presidential candidate since, including Donald Trump, said they would get rid of it. But then once you get elected, is it plutonium or something? Is it kryptonite? Why is it when we get power that's never on the table?
Well, it may be after this. I mean, it may be after, in light of what we've seen with where the left was trying to take education, what the left is trying to teach our students across this country, it may be on the table. I mean, President Trump did more of what he said he was going to do than any president in our lifetime. From building the wall to embassy in Jerusalem to go down the list. So we'll see. I do know that the average salary at the Department of Education is about twice what the average teacher's salary is. And the good teachers who are doing the Lord's work, I think they probably think, what's going on with this Department of Education too? And then the good teachers who are saying, seeing this curriculum being pushed by the people who know it all in D.C., they're fed up with that too. So we'll see. I hope President Trump runs again. I hope he runs, and I think he's going to. And if he does, I think he's going to win.
Well, I think that we really hope that's the case. And you've also got somebody like DeSantis, right, who has been, as far as governing goes, he has been the one governor willing to push this all the way to the wall. I think he's really the first governor to actually formalize getting rid of the remnants of Common Core. So that's encouraging as well.
Yeah, and that's why the left's coming after him, because he's pushing back so hard on their crazy policies.
How far? I mean, it seems to me as an educator myself that if we don't get a handle on what we're teaching to the children, in a new Gallup poll, 74% of college-age people between the age of 18 and 24 said that they prefer socialism to capitalism and free markets. Of course, when you turn around and ask them what socialism, and they don't know.
That's what I was going to say.
But that's an important statistic. And so, I mean, how long can we function if we keep allowing the schools to warp young minds?
Right. No, we got to change it, and it's. I think we have time, and I think it's happening. Like I said, I've not seen this phenomena where you see so many parents, so many moms in particular, fired up about what is happening in the school system. So I think we can turn it around. It's interesting to me because I remember And when I was a senior in high school, my government economics teacher showed me Milton Friedman's Free to Choose film series. And that's when I started thinking like, well, maybe this is what really makes sense, and free markets and people choose in the Adam Smith model that the Wealth of Nations model, all this. So, but yet how different it is today. So I think we can push back on this and change it.
Adam Smith, Thomas Sowell,
Yeah.
the late Walter Williams,
Yeah.
Milton Friedman. We've got all these brilliant conservative economic minds, and all the left wants to talk about is Karl Marx and his failed system.
Yeah,
right?
Friedman was so many great teachers, like people you were talking about, like so many great teachers. He could take the complex, he could explain economics make it so. Good educators do that. They have a way of taking the complex and making it simple so that guys like Jim Jordan could figure it out, supply and demand, production possibility curves, and opportunity cost, just basic economic principles that makes so much sense to me. That's how we need to do it. But yet you got this, racist, socialist, radical stuff being taught to kids. And think about also what inspires kids. That's not the kind of stuff that's going to inspire kids to be better citizens and be better people and have better families. That's what's unfortunate.
No, I am not Jim Jordan. I'm me. So before we move on, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store, download, and then make sure you allow for notifications. Also, if you do like listening to the audio podcast, we are available on Apple, Google, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Now, to the stories at hand. Not all administrators, not all of them, can fool the public about the teaching of CRT in schools, and that's a good thing. What's happening is that you may be forced to resign if you get caught, like this man did. His name is Dr. Martin Cox, and he has resigned from the Clarkstown Central School in Rockland County, New York. As a statement, of course, says he resigned, for personal reasons, because they all say that. But according to the local news, there's a good reason why he had to resign.
Dr. Martin Cox served as the superintendent of the Clarkstown School District for the past 5 years, but that tenure ends today. Cox announced his resignation Tuesday, saying in a statement he was stepping down for personal reasons. Some parents tell News 12 many disagreed with Cox's COVID and mask mandates, and there was concern over talk of bringing critical race theory into the school's curriculum, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI policies.
Now, per usual, in any of these instances where it's a resignation, where it's clearly because of all the parents saying that this guy shouldn't be teaching, critical race theory or the mask mandates or any other reason, it's like the quick in the hush-hush. So it was a very quick 5-1 vote by the school board, and then it was no one is talking about it after that. And they're saying that, some sources, some parents are saying that they're allowing Cox to resign instead of being fired. So it makes you wonder, exactly what was he doing? We will never know.
Well, I think we will know, because what's going to end up happening, there are so many superintendents and so many school positions where already all this infrastructure of the left is in place. So why would you fight in a relatively small school district? Why would you fight angry moms who are motivated? Why would you fight a school board that may be now taken over by conservative families or people who are at least challenging some of this? I mean, he's walked away, but I'll bet you within 3 months he's the superintendent someplace else, and it's going to be a place where they already have this stuff, so he's not going to have to fight this. So this is what I think is so tragic about this, but also so hopeful. It's tragic that our schools are so politicized that he was smart to walk away before he was fired. The problem is that, again, the majority of our school systems across the country will take this guy in a second, because he's just he manages the liberal progressive worldview in the schools. It became very difficult to do it at this school, so why bother? I bet you he finds a job in 2 months at a school district that pays him more money to do already what he was trying to do there. But that's the tragedy of this. He's going to find himself a golden parachute to harass some other kids in some other poor school district. However, this does show you something. If you can take over a school board, moms and dads, if you can, get community activism to the point where you're more than represented as a majority on a school board, Are you going to end critical race theory? No. Are you going to end the federal intrusion with all this garbage into your schools? No. Can you have power to get certain books removed from your schools when your moms bring them forward? Absolutely. If you have a recalcitrant administrator like the superintendent, Mr. Cox, can you put enough pressure on with the help of families to get rid of him? So local control does still exist. Again, you're not going to fix the problems of the public schools, but you can radically change day to day what you see that doesn't work, including personnel. That's one more reason why you ought to consider getting really motivated to replace all the liberal educrats on these school boards with conservative common sense moms and dads. You will be able to provide your kid a better education than they're getting in school districts where that's not happening.
We have yet another explanation for all of this white supremacy and why it's happening, other than, of course, it just being everyone's fault if you're white in tone. So now it's also thanks to standardized testing, because standardized testing allows for white supremacy to flourish, supposedly. This is according to the Massachusetts Teachers Association in Massachusetts, and they're claiming that the state's standardized testing has allowed white supremacy to flourish. The union wants to strip the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System, the MCAS, as part of the graduation requirements for students. And MTA President Mary Najimy said in a statement, the implementation of the MCAS and other standardized tests has had the exact opposite effect of what was supposed to occur when the system was introduced more than 20 years ago. This is another just telling story of how bad our education system has been.
Do you remember when Common Core just 10 years ago?
Yes.
Common Core was predicated on standardized tests.
Yes.
The entire progressive scheme revolved around national testing. And what's so tragic about this story is people forget that before Common Core, Massachusetts had the best standards in the country. Sandy Stotsky, a good friend of the show, she put those standards together with a governor that allowed her to do it. And what did they get? They got one of the few school systems in the entire country who were competing internationally with other high-achieving schools, right? So the state of Massachusetts was doing such a good job that they were able to compete globally in the way that American kids most everywhere else can't. So the entire scheme of Common Core was based on these, and I don't like these huge standardized tests either, not because they grade people and therefore they're racist, which is what we're hearing today, but because the tests themselves were tools that forced teachers then under Common Core to teach to the Common Core curriculum, right? It took away freedom. So here we are now, and it shows you in the space of one decade, where coercive standardized tests were the answer to progressive educrats. Now they've been jettisoned. All testing, all attempts to evaluate students and differentiate them is now white supremacy and racism. And so schools aren't even schools anymore. If schools aren't measuring educational achievement, they are not schools. They are indoctrination centers where everybody gets processed like sausage, ground up, and spit out at the end exactly the same ignorant way.
Well, let's hear from a history teacher and his thoughts on this entire situation.
We have bigger priorities right now. We need to get students the supports that they need in terms of social emotional learning, in terms of mental health. We need to make sure that students are passing classes.
So more important than tests and measuring your kids' academic achievement, or even teaching them academic subject matter, more important than that is social emotional learning. And that's what I said. Bring them to camp, bring them to your little indoctrination camps, fill their heads full of left-wing progressive activism. I noticed that over his right shoulder there was a Black Lives Matter poster. Give them all the ideology to turn them into good little liberals, and let's call it a day. That's how Massachusetts went from, as Katie pointed out, 20 years ago, the best school system in the in America, to this. So as we've seen today, schools are in a rush not to educate your kids, not to teach them anything, but only to care for their emotions with a whole bunch of progressive pablum drop down their throats. But this is Instant Classics, where we actually talk about what education could be, and we give you examples of what your kids could be learning if we took the time to actually care about subject matter. It's time again for real education, and we've been focusing on the great Baroque Renaissance figure, Lorenzo Bernini, and just a staggering intellect, a brilliant architect, a painter of high renown, a poet and theatrical man, and most represented, perhaps remembered for his incredible sculpture. It's called The Vision of Constantine, and it's an incredibly detailed, very, very amazing, really, equestrian statue. There is Constantine, the Roman general, and he's up on a horse, and the horse has two legs rearing back. Why? Because the vision of Constantine. He looks up in the sky. He's completely overnumbered. He's about to take on a Roman emperor who once was his boss. Now there's a rebellion in place. That Roman emperor has far more resources and soldiers than Constantine does. This is the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, very famous. And even though he's outnumbered, Constantine looks to the sky and he sees a sign. In the sign of the cross, in flaming cross, and underneath the Latin words "in hoc signis vinces," right? In this sign, you will conquer. So Constantine quickly looked around and consulted his intellectuals, found out that that was the sign of the Christians. And so he vowed that if he was to win this battle against all odds, he would take Christianity upon himself. So there is Constantine, and notice that the horse too, in this miraculous sight in the sky, overwhelmed. The light that comes blazing down from the sky illuminates him on his horse, and you can see from this other vision, this other angle, just how detailed the carving is. This is one of his just many spectacular sculptures, and this one has a particular importance for Rome in the 17th century, as Rome was fighting back against the Protestant Reformation, and the Counter-Reformation was trying to win back souls and to provide a reason for Europeans to choose Catholicism over Protestantism. This is a hearkening back to that moment where the Roman form of Christianity was adopted first by Rome, a Roman general who became a Roman emperor. So this is a powerful piece of Catholic propaganda, as well as being an incredibly beautiful and inspiring tribute to a particular moment that actually ended paganism in the West up until today, when it's making a comeback.
Those are the stories for today. If you have a question for us, please feel free to drop it into the mailbag by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
And that's going to do it for our show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. And until next time, we need you to stay educated, my friends.